What's going on? So, episode 19 here. We are with Adam Mccombes. Now, Adam was somebody who actually hired me for an offer last year, and Adam's an incredible person, just with tons of experience in the sales world, even outside of high ticket as well. Because a lot of guys we speak with, they're usually in the high ticket bubble. So, just for context, Adam's been in sales for over 10 years. Previously started in door to door and was actually a sales manager from 2014 to 2016, trained over 20 reps, top three conversion out of 150 franchises, right? Which is massive. Set for traffic and funnels. A lot of the guys have come on from traffic and funnels. If you remember Josh Johnson, Nick Elia, Carson Cruz as well. I think a few other guys as well. 8 month setting for traffic and funnels, over 1 mil generated, which is pretty incredible as well. Over 2 years closing, 3 mil generated as well. And then 2022 started SDR management as well. Just for more context as well, guys. So at one of the companies that I was a part of, at Pompa Program, it's basically a health offer, helps people with, it's more with cellular health, stuff like that. Generated 1 mil within 60 days from an SDR department starting from scratch, which is pretty good. Jay Shetty as well brought them from 50K a month to 250K a month in 3 months. Pretty incredible as well. And then obviously loads of different companies in between. And now you're with Closers.io with Cole Gordon, which is massive as well. So yeah, that's obviously everything as much as I could cover there, Adam. But I suppose going back to where it all started, like 10 years ago, like what even got us into this anyway? Did we fall into it, or was it intentional for us to get into sales?
Yeah, no, appreciate the intro. And it definitely wasn't intentional. I was going to community college, and there was a guy set up with a table and a cardboard cutout of his lawn care company and for his franchise, and he was just hiring people there. I mean, it was a very, hey, if you apply, I'm going to hire you type of thing. So it was door to
Okay.
door sales. I mean, it's going door to door selling lawn care in January in Buffalo, New York, when there's 10 feet of snow on the ground. They'll take anybody to come and
Yeah,
work for them. So
I
yeah,
remember.
I got on with him. I filled it out. I was working in a factory at the time. I hated it. I was working second shift, and it was terrible going to school full time and then doing that full time is or then doing the factory full time as well in second shift. It was rough. So saw that, I was like, you know what, let's try it out. I think I did the actual door to door. I mean, even when I was managing, I was going door to door. But yeah, I did that for like 2 years, managed the whole team, and yeah, it was probably over 20 reps at the point that we got it to, which was really fun. But yeah, I really just fell into it. I mean, it wasn't anything where I was like, oh yeah, I need to get into sales. It was just I always liked talking to people, and it worked out pretty well.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like more of a fell into it type of answer, I guess. But obviously, you're now here 10 years down the line, still doing it very much in the trenches with doing lots of different things. So, I guess out of the whole time that you've been doing sales, I guess going back to more or less the beginning, what were some of the foundations that helped you to be able to, thrive so well in the high ticket space?
Yeah, I think a big piece of it is the environment of who you surround yourself with. If you have people that are also great, it's inevitable that you either fail or you become great. Like you really don't have any other choice.
Yeah.
Now, there's always things that I would never call myself great, and there's things that I would love to improve on or always improve on. But I think the environment's a big part of it. Like coming up in when I first started setting, I mean, dude, I didn't even know what setting was. I was working at an RV dealership selling $500,000 motorhomes and like the big ticket deals. And then, Josh Johnson, one of my childhood friends, posted on Facebook that his company Traffic and Funnels was hiring, and I was pretty burnt out from doing RV sales. So I hit up Josh, and yeah, he got me a job at Traffic and Funnel setting, having no idea what I was doing. But then, once, we had to move here within 90 days of, moved to Tennessee within 90 days of working for them, brought us down here. My wife and I, thank goodness for her and being okay with moving down here. And she
Very
didn't
similar
want
to
to.
Scott's, right? I think you were saying earlier how it pretty much seems like the same story.
Yeah, yeah. I think he said something super similar, but and his wife and my wife were friends as well. So she kind of convinced my wife to move down here. So shout out to Sarah for that. In convincing my wife to come down here. So I'm really grateful for that. But it worked out from there. I mean, my first few months setting, I absolutely sucked. Like I was so bad at it. But because, I was able to learn from people like Josh or people from Nick, like Nick, Aaliyah, the Jake Grants and everybody else that was there. I mean, I'm sure I'm forgetting some people too, but I mean, being able to surround myself in that environment was huge in being successful. I mean, just knowing you're surrounded by people that know what they're doing. So if somebody's like a brand new setter and you're coming into a company, or you're trying to get into a company, make sure you're working with a competent company. As this space continues to grow, I mean, 2020 was when I got into it, and we were one of the biggest companies there was. So it was kind of easy to be successful once you kind of figured it out. I'm
Yeah.
not going to say I was just grinding all day every day, which I was, and I was working 12-hour days and so on. But past that, if I didn't have that environment, maybe I wouldn't have made it. Who knows? I mean, I would like to say otherwise, but you never know. So for a new rep coming into the place, like you don't want to be brand new at it and be the best rep on the team. You want to have people that are better than you so you can look up to them, so you can learn from them. I think that's the biggest thing, is just knowing who to learn from, as well as, there's so many people that you might be friends with or work with that are also trying to go through it, and knowing where to take your advice from is a big piece too. That's always stuck with me, that people have said to me, is like, you're going to always hear outside perspective, and most of the time the outside perspective is wrong because they don't have the context. So it's knowing who to take your advice from, and really the environment that you surround yourself with is what helped me succeed. And I would say that for any new rep as well coming into it.
Absolutely. That it reminds me of like the sales sniper days when it was like traffic and funnels, then it kind of went to sales sniper or closers.io for a bit. And in those kind of environments where it's very high intensity, high pressure, like you have to perform every single day, it's like when you do anything else, it feels easy because you've never been part of such an intense environment before. Even door to door was the same as well. I remember. I'm sure that was probably the case for you when you was doing it as well. So like being part of that environment, obviously Nick had different takeaways, Josh, Carson, like what were some of the biggest things within that environment that you noticed that helped you just propel to different levels to go from really like you said, bad in the first 3 months to just really, really good? What were some things you picked up?
I would say just not quitting. It's easy to put a bunch of work into something and then it not work out, and then immediately be like, all right, I'm gonna go try something else, or I'm gonna do something else, or maybe I should go and do this instead, or maybe I'm not cut out for this. But I think the my vision of what I wanted to create was just so strong of what I was trying to do or what I wanted to create. Like I wanted to create something that an opportunity that I never had. I dropped out of college because I didn't feel. I dropped out 3 times in college actually for 3 different majors, and it just that never was going to suffice to anything. I really had no backup plan. So I think the biggest thing is like, without having the backup plan. And I think this is kind of similar to what Josh was saying on his podcast, but it's so true. Like, having no backup plan is like the big piece that pushed me forward. But I think really more tangible takeaways is just fucking work harder than everybody else. Like, work harder, figure out how to do things efficiently. There's so many reps that I see nowadays that are just so lazy that just they'll do the bare minimum and just be okay with that. And I think for me, as being a brand new rep, like I wanted to fail as fast as possible so I could learn how to win. Because if you see other people winning in your environment, and you're not winning, if you can see that you're failing, but you can see how other people are winning, if you are going to take the time to fail, you might as well take the time to win. So I think that was my biggest takeaway, is like, no matter how many times I might not be successful at something, if you don't stop, you always will win. And I think there's some good quotes about that. I couldn't name one, but I've definitely heard them, of like, the failure doesn't come from not trying, it comes from quitting. So something along those lines. Don't quote me on that or ask where that quote came from, but it's something like that.
That's going to be the subtitle of the YouTube video now, so I'm taking that.
Perfect. Amazing.
Good stuff. Okay, so no, there's some really, really valid points, and I think it's very similar to all of the podcasts. Like I say, it's mainly mindset, how you're viewing things, and perspective that leads to often how things go in your career. That's basically been the advice for pretty much everyone that's hopped on. And I guess, making that transition now, you're obviously into management. You did, I guess, go back to what you did, in door to door when you first started out, right? So, like, how was that experience for you managing high ticket compared to something like door to door? They're both being totally different industries, right? Like, did you notice any differences?
Say just about everything is different. Most people, I feel like getting into door-to-door sales, that's kind of like their intro to sales. I feel like any door-to-door company is going to hire as many reps as possible and have the highest churn possible because someone will go knock doors once and then never show up again after that. It's definitely a lot different in the sense of, you look at like the high ticket space and all the marketing that's out there, you can make X amount of dollars in X amount of time. There's more buy-in, I think, from like brand new reps that keeps them around longer and keeps them wanting to win because marketing sells the vision. And I mean, that's their job, which is fine, I guess, in some sense. So like there's more buy-in of what you can create if you're willing to put the work into it. So I think the big difference is like people want to, at least anybody I've ever hired wants to win. And with door to door, it's like they're just kind of there, and hopefully they can make some money and not have any processes to do it. So I think that's the biggest difference is like there's just more marketing. It's one thing that it has done good is like selling the vision to people and getting people to buy into that vision. Now, obviously, everything else is up to that person to create it, but I think there's more buy-in in the high ticket space, which is cool.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that as well. Just thinking because with door-to-door sales, it's like it kind of it's very easy to know who's going to last and who isn't. I remember doing door-to-door for nearly like a year and a half, and it was just so easy to tell, right, this person's going to last past the 4 days of onboarding and training and go for it, and this person's just going to quit within the 4 days. It kind of exposes the person, I think, when doing door-to-door. So that's what it does like a really good job of, and obviously personal development. But then doing more high ticket, yeah, obviously, like you said, the vision is being sold. Sometimes kind of like earning, 8 to 10K a month, but working hardly any hours sometimes as well. Like, the marketing's been dialed in a little bit more nowadays, I'd say. But I guess seeing how it's been from 2020 to how it is now, there obviously has been some massive changes. So for you, what have been some of the things that you've noticed and how you've been, I suppose, had to adapt in that amount of time as well? Because I know for me, I've had to massively since Sales Sniper, because there's been lots of changes for sure. So it'd be good to hear from your side.
Yeah, I think the bigger thing is the FTC stepped in and made sure that there's not
For
a bunch
sure.
of open-ended claims. I think that's the biggest change that's happened, which kind of weeds people out, which is good in the sense of like a manager position. I want people that know what they're getting into. Because if somebody thinks they're going to get into a setter role and in like 3 months they'll move into a closing role like just crush it and be amazing. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's probably not going to happen. So like the bigger difference is I've seen people have better expectations now of knowing, okay, I need to crush it at this first, so then I can move up to this next thing. So that's one thing I have noticed with some of the people that I've hired and have worked with over the last few months, even is well, over the last several months, really. But they have better people have better expectations when back in 2020, the sales mentor days, it was the glory years of sales, but like the expectations were so much different. It was like, click this ad and make $1 million in 10 seconds. And then everyone believed it because there was no one telling them not to believe it. So I think a big change too is because there's so many companies that are out there now, everybody has an offer. I mean, I even see salespeople that have been in sales for like 3 months start their own offer. I'm like, what are you doing? But everybody has an offer and it kind of weeds out it it makes it tough because everyone's getting pitched. So like sales is totally different than it was 4 years ago, at least in the high ticket space, is like everybody knows what's happening. So people actually have to be good at their job to be successful at it, which doesn't just mean yes, dialing and doing it, but it's knowing how to do it efficiently and what's going to actually communicate with somebody. I think what I see with a lot of new reps and even reps that have been doing it for, a year, 2 years is they just want to live and die by like a script or a framework, or they're always looking for a quick fix to, get better. But really, most of it, at least on the phones and the job aspect of it, which really is only the 20% of it, is you have to just have a conversation with somebody and understand where they're coming from. And when people start realizing that and they know that their framework or their script is there to help them guide them along the process or like collect the data points, but can have a real conversation with someone and be an expert makes a total difference. I think one thing I say to almost everybody when I'm doing a call review within like the first 2 minutes is, oh, it sounds like you're listening to check boxes. You're not listening to understand what that person is actually saying. I think I've probably said that 10,000 times over the last 2 years alone. And it's true because when you're setting, somebody's going to tell you what their problem is or why they opted into something or what they want within like 90 seconds. And most salespeople just glaze over it and try and shove somebody into a sales process when if you were just listening, you could understand that person and like build the trust with them and really help them versus just trying to get them on the next call or ask them a couple of questions and move them forward. I just saw an ad the other day and it was for an AI appointment setter and like through a call and I listened to the ad and it was horrendous. It was like they called someone, they asked them like three questions and was like, I think what would be best is if you got on another call. It's like no chance that person would ever show up, but there's reps out there too that do the same shit that just ask someone like three questions and are like, hey, get on the next call. And if you're not, it's just, I don't know, it doesn't work. Like you have to actually understand what somebody wants and why they want it and what it lets them do. So looking back from 2020 till now, even, it's a whole different landscape of sales and you just actually have to be good at your job. You can't just kind of float
Yeah,
by because you have a shit ton of leads or your company doesn't know any better.
100%. Lots of points to unpack, and I don't know if you agree with this, Adam, but I would say that right now we have lots of appointment setters. There's way more. We've got lots of people, but it's very easy to stand out to be a good appointment setter. I think that gap's gotten larger over time, so it's like the standard and I guess the entry point to being a good appointment setter. I'd say it's dropped personally. I think it's easy to stand out, but let me know your thoughts on that as far as like that landscape edge.
Completely agree. It's I've seen so many reps just with companies that even like I'll post a job opportunity or something if like I'm hiring for something and so I'll ask somebody to send me like an intro video or like just tell me why I should hire you type of thing. And they'll send me their numbers and they're just horrendous, but they think they're like amazing. And it's like crazy
Yeah,
to see that. And just the standards have dropped. And one thing I always thought about too, because like there's so many great people out there that I have hired that have just been phenomenal at setting and they've stayed setting. I'll give a shout out to Nathan Burnett specifically. Like I think you
good
had him
guy.
on your podcast. I've hired him for like four companies now because he's just so good. And if anybody's listening to this, don't hire him because he's not that good. It's not because I want him. He's not that good.
It's because you want to keep
But
and
yeah,
that's
yeah, it's just somebody
gotta
I want
grab.
to keep. But he's so good, and I think my biggest thing is like I would rather train somebody and help coach somebody to become a great appointment setter or SDR or whatever the hell they call them nowadays, and build a career out of that versus just being an okay type of closer. Like you've gotten in, you hit the minimums of setting. Oh, I got a promotion and now I'm okay at closing. But like you can have a better career being a career setter if you're really good at it than if you're closing. Like you just have so much more opportunity. So I think that's something I try and teach a lot of my reps is like I'm going to support you for whatever you want to create and build out of your career, but you can build a real career out of appointment setting. I think that role is so much more valuable than just a closer. Closers are dime a dozen, and most of them are lazy. Most of them are bad. There's good ones out there, obviously. Like not no disrespect to any closers in any way, shape, or form, but most of y'all suck too. That's the the big thing, and you're not that good. And I'm not
Okay,
saying
that's the
I'm
new stuff, by
great
the way. I like
either.
that.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not saying I was the best closer either, because dude, I wasn't. I mean, I was good enough to make it, but I wasn't spectacular by any means. Um, I have call recordings that I had from years ago that I still listen to just to humble myself because they were so bad. Even on deals that would close. So it's just a good laugh. But yeah, I think that like you can create a career out of setting now compared to back in the day. The pipe dream was like, oh, you have to be a setter, so then you can become a closer. But
Of
I
course.
know and I've worked with and I've trained setters that make more money than most of the closers that are out there. So it's like I don't you don't have to believe the pipe dream. And speaking on your point of what you asked me a couple minutes ago is like it's really easy to stand out as a good appointment setter because the standards are just so low now.
Yeah, fully. It reminds me because I had the conversation. You might know Freddie McCurry.
Yeah.
I did an episode with him. He's phenomenal as a setter. Made like 10 to 15K a month, and a lot of closers wish they could make that on a consistent basis. But it's like if you really dial in, you have a great opportunity. You have great closers around you. Like there's so much. Like as we discussed, as a setter, you have more leverage than you actually think you do. You're not
Mhm.
just like doing the grunt work and the people that like are looked down upon, you can do so much with being a setter. It's actually crazy. I've told this story a few times, but I always like to reiterate just to get that importance across. But I remember when I'd bump up my commissions because closers would pay me money for my sets, right? And it's so good when you're able to do that and provide that much certainty based on growing your skill set. So it's like when you mentioned that appointment setters, like I guess is more important than closing, like I'd love to hear your argument behind that because I actually do agree with you, but it'd be good to hear your thoughts on that.
I mean, dude, setter is other than you're the first, pretty much the first human contact with anybody in with a new lead. I mean, other than some marketing emails or ads that they've seen, like you're the first point of contact. Like if you do a shit job, that lead is never going to trust that company. So I think it's insane when they put a brand new salesperson with like no onboarding, no training, no nothing, just on calls and say, okay, go figure it out. Like it's just I think it's burning money essentially. And I think that role is just more important because, obviously there's inbound within business and like that works great. But like, dude, if your account gets zucked and you get shut down and then you have to rely on a team of shitty appointment setters, your company's going to crumble. If you have good appointment setters and good inbound or however your company's built out, you can say one way or the other. If you have good outbound salespeople, your company is never going to fail. If you have thousands of leads, but they're not getting hit and they're just sitting in a CRM and then your ad accounts get shut down, and then nobody knows what to do, you're just going to suck and your company's going to suck and it's going to fail. And it's shitty to say, but I've seen it happen firsthand. And the appointment setter is that first point of contact. And I think looking past that too, from a business perspective, but from a career perspective, for a setter that wants to move into a closing role, if you get really damn good at setting and then you start closing for yourself and the ego doesn't get in the way and you don't get lazy, you're going to be better than every other closer that's there that's never set because you have a skill set of knowing how to actually find a good lead, versus just one hopefully being placed on your calendar. Or if let's say have a bunch of no-shows for the day on like some inbound leads. You're not just sitting on your thumbs or like going to do some yoga while you're in between calls. Like you know how to find and generate your own leads. I would say that that's a big piece for anybody that's just really good at sales in general, whether it's but really specifically closing here is like if you know how to generate your own leads, you're always going to win. And like you can't you can't lose. So I think setting's more important from a career growth perspective, but also from a business perspective of if you're good at it, you'll always be able to, you just have a skill set that's always going to be able to win. Like you could
Yeah.
just jump in and be a closer and you can fail and then not know why you failed because you don't have anything to back it up or you don't know how to go out and win unless you're like rigorously training on, oh, this is how I do lead gen, or this is how I, do organic or everything. I feel like setters are faced with so much more depending on the offer. I mean, you can outbound dial, cold email or email, warm leads, or you're doing organic online to build a social presence, or you're, sending DMs. Like there's just so many more points than just what like a inbound closer has to cover. So I think that's why it's more, this is a really long-winded answer I'm coming to realize as to why I'm saying setters are more important, but I truly believe it. Like it's just, you're the first point of contact and for career growth, it's a skill set that most people don't have.
Well, no, it's like I always say that you're building the business up from scratch. You're kind of playing the role of a business owner when it's a startup. That's what I'd say. It's like so crucial because it's that first point of contact. It's the first impression of a customer, right? The ads are important, the marketing, but that interaction can change their view of the company totally, right? For good or for worse, obviously. But yeah, I guess just to top it off, as I guess a pretty decent opener as far as a good setter and a great setter, what would you say is going to get someone from that good to great status, in maybe the top three things?
Top three things, I would say somebody that's going to do is going to figure out more efficient work than anybody else. Like I'm not saying if you make 1,000 dials and then the next guy makes 600 dials, I mean, if you're doing efficient work, that 600 dial person could do in, let's say, a week. That 600 dial person might even be better. So I think it's efficiency that's a big one. Not saying don't make dials, go out and make dials. Everyone doing outbound calls, but I think it's efficiency that's within the top three. I don't know if I'd call it number one, but within the top three, I would say it's proficiency on your offer and like market knowledge as well. Like if you're selling on an offer, you need to know how it works. You need to know who your competition is. You need to know what else is out there. You need to know really just the ins and outs of the business itself, which I think is so overlooked. And then I would say really the third one is just like want to learn how to keep growing. Like I think I said it earlier. Like, yeah, some people might look at some of the numbers that I had when I was working in like production roles and be like, wow, those are great. But I look at them as like, I don't think they're that good because there's always somebody else out there that I know is better than me. So I think it's always having that mindset. So, and don't give up. That's a top four or special fill-in one or whatever the hell you want to call it is a just not giving up like that's what's going to separate somebody and not getting comfortable. I think is the easier way to say that. I've seen reps that company I was just working with had two setters that both made close to 20K one month, both of them in the same month. I think they made like 18 grand each, and the next month their numbers just plummeted because they've never made that kind of money before, and then they didn't know how to
Right.
sustain it. So efficiency, proficiency, and sustainability, I think, is the top three.
Beautiful. It's a good way to finish it off. And yeah, as far as this episode, guys, of course, the usual. Please do like it. Please do share it and comment the best takeaways from this. Obviously, there's a bunch of pearls, so I'm sure you guys have plenty to comment below. And as far as reaching you, Adam, obviously you're always hiring for different roles. You're part of closers.io now, so there's I'm sure multiple different roles that are going to be available. So if people do want to reach you, a genuinely good setter, obviously that adds value. Guys, don't do a stupid reach out and just say, "Hey, do you have job?" Like, please don't say anything like that. Right, add value. How can they reach you? I'm assuming Facebook, but if there's other ways, let me know.
Facebook's the easiest way to reach me. I don't have like the notifications turned on my phone, so if I take a minute to get back to somebody, that's why. But Facebook's
Follow
the
up.
easiest way to. What'd you say?
Follow up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly that follow up. But yeah, Facebook's probably the best way to reach me, whether it's for just connecting or and don't send me a message and say, hey, I'm just connecting with you. I don't care. Like make it so I want to respond to you. So yeah, I would say Facebook really, or other podcasts, things like that. That's the main way to reach me. Facebook, LinkedIn, on more of like a business side of things as well. But I would say if it's just connecting for whatever reason, Facebook's the way to go for it.
Perfect. Okay, so that's a bit of word of advice, guys. Make sure that you send Adam a funny meme. Make sure it's a good one, right? Because he might actually respond and follow up, obviously. So, absolutely, I appreciate your time, Adam. It's really been good for you to hop on, and obviously we're going to be on to episode 20 soon. So, take care, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one.
You guys.